Have you ever woken up early, before anyone else, and felt the whole world was still and quiet, just for you? There's a small village in England called Willowbrook, and on a particular Tuesday morning in early spring, something quietly wonderful happened there. This is a gentle story about a morning, about tea and kindness and the small moments that make life beautiful. Let's begin. At 6:30 on a Tuesday morning, Willowbrook was asleep. The sky above the hills was the color of pale lavender, that soft, uncertain color between night and day. Mist drifted slowly across the fields behind the church. The ducks on the pond hadn't moved yet. Even the birds were only just beginning. But in the little bakery on the high street, a light was already on. Tom Baker, and yes, that really was his name, had been awake since 4 o'clock. He always was. The bread didn't bake itself. He moved quietly in his warm kitchen. Flour, water, yeast, salt. Hands that had done this 1,000 times. The oven breathed out heat. The smell of fresh bread moved through the whole building and drifted out under the door into the cold morning air. By the time the village began to wake, Tom had already arranged the loaves in the window. A row of golden brown blooms, still steaming softly. The first person through the door was old Mrs. Hartley. She wore a green woolen coat, even in spring, and she always bought the same thing. 1 small sourdough and a currant bun. "Good morning, Tom," she said in her unhurried way. "Good morning, Mrs. Hartley. Chilly this morning, isn't it?" "Oh, I rather like it," she said. "There's something honest about cold air." She paid, tucked the bread under her arm, and went back out into the lavender morning. By 8 o'clock, the village had come fully alive. Children walked to school in small, chattering groups, school bags bumping at their sides. The post van moved slowly down the cobblestone lane. The bookshop opened its green door and put a little chalkboard outside with the words, "New arrivals, D.O. come in." At the café next to the churchyard, Jane was making tea. Real tea. Leaves, not bags. A brown teapot that had belonged to her mother. She believed, quite firmly, that a good cup of tea required patience and attention, and she gave it both. She carried a cup to table 3, where a young man sat with a notebook and a worried expression. "First time in Willowbrook?" she asked. He looked up, surprised. "Is it that obvious?" "You're looking at the village like you're trying to memorize it," she said kindly. "That's how newcomers look. Old residents never notice it anymore." He smiled at that. "I just moved here. I don't really know anyone yet." "You will," said Jane, simply. "Give a week. By Friday, Tom at the bakery will already know your order." She was right, of course. She always was. The young man, his name was Daniel, sat with his tea and watched the morning through the window. People said hello to each other. The post van finished its rounds. 2 elderly men played chess outside the pub, even though it was definitely too cold for chess. And Daniel thought, this is a place where time moves differently. Not slowly exactly, but gently, as if the village itself knew there was no need to hurry. He opened his notebook and wrote just 1 line. "I think I'm going to like it here." In today's story, we visited a small English village and met some of its people. Here's a question for you to think about. What does Daniel write in his notebook at the end of the story? And here's a personal question. Is there a place that makes you feel the way Willowbrook made Daniel feel? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Thank you for spending this morning with me and with Willowbrook. If today's story felt like a quiet cup of tea, warm, unhurried, and just what you needed, then you're exactly who this channel is made for. Subscribe for a new story every week. And if you have a moment, leave a comment, even just to say hello. That kind of thing matters more than you know. Until next time, be gentle with yourself today.